Thanks for checking out the Ideal Impact Podcast, where we discuss 5 key skills and the impact they can have on your life, as well as some major issues in society. You ready to get after it? Hey everybody, so this episode is going to be a little bit different than any other episode that we've done before, and that is because I am flying solo today. So Randy is taking the weekend off to relax, and Brian has to work today, so it is just me. I have not done a long form recording by myself in quite some time, so hopefully this goes well. But I have some interesting information to share and something that I think, something that happened to me. And by telling the story, I think that maybe it'll help some other people out there. So as far as what's going on in life right now, we closed on the sale of our first rental property. So Callie and I purchased a home back in 2022, and we actually had the intent of living in it, ended up turning it into our first rental property because some changes in the work situation, both for me and Callie. It just didn't make sense for us to move. And then also we were deciding that we were going to go to Texas for 4 months. So why move our entire lives just to move it again a couple months later? Ultimately, again, we turned it into a rental property, and it was a massive lesson learned. In the beginning, I thought, I think this will work. Like, I can make it work if I just fix this and fix that. I can get this much rent. And boy, was I wrong. Ultimately, definitely lost money on this deal. However, it was a very good lesson. You can read all the books, you can listen to all the podcasts. Nothing is going to make sense until you actually apply it. So I read probably 5 or 6 real estate investing books. I was listening to the podcast. I talked to other people that own rental properties, and I still mess it up. And a lot of that was due to my lack of emotional intelligence when we went to purchase this property. And again, it was kind of hard because when we purchased it originally, we weren't intending to turn it into a rental. But at that point, I was thinking about real estate investing because we had already owned a home out here where we're back to living now in Perry, Ohio, and we were going to turn that into a rental. So ultimately, this house that we purchased, I was anxious. It was 2022. The market was crazy. I wasn't finding anything that would work for us as far as location, moving closer to work, and then potentially making it a rental later on down the road. So I bought this property off market, found it from a friend that I had gone to high school with, wanted to get rid of the house. They were moving into a new one. It would be a lot easier to sell it off market than putting it on, dealing with multiple offers, all of that stuff. So I went in there. I did not do my due diligence. The house needed a whole lot more work than I had anticipated. Had I gotten an inspection, had I had some other people look at it, I probably would have caught a lot more of these issues up front, and I most likely wouldn't have gone with this. But hindsight's 2020, and I really don't regret it. Yeah, I lost probably a couple $1,000s ultimately in this deal, but it got me started. It got me comfortable with being a landlord, how to prepare a lease, how to manage a property. So in the long run, it was a very cheap lesson, and again, got me in the game. Now, well, we just sold that one and closed on it on Tuesday. However, we still own our last home in Perry here, and then now the purchase of the current home that I'm sitting in, both of which, well, the other house is going to remain a long-term rental, and the current house is going to become a midterm rental while we do some bouncing around next year. We're ultimately going to come back to it. But had I not purchased that home last year, I wouldn't have got started, or maybe it would have been even a worse deal, and I would have gotten myself in a worse situation. So again, no regrets about it, and excited to have that money back in the bank account. For the time being, gives me the freedom and the flexibility to do some more things here with the business. So excited about that. Also making a pivot with the way that I approach coaching. So it's been kind of hard. What I'm ultimately doing with my coaching is trying to get people to gain a deeper understanding of how habits work and change those behaviors. But sometimes that can be pretty hard to do virtually without something tangible to tie it to. So what I'm doing is really leaning into what I love, and that's the physical fitness portion. So I was previously a certified personal trainer, certified nutrition coach, and I let those things lapse because I wasn't quite sure I wanted to pursue them professionally. And the reason that I wasn't quite sure about that was I was worried that if I did it professionally, I would lose my love for it. And I've seen that happen with other people and for myself in a few instances here and there. When you start feeling that you have to do something, it can become more like a chore than something that you're actually excited for and actually passionate about. So I kind of shied away with it. The other thing with that too, when I was at Progressive, I kept thinking to myself, how am I going to replace my income through personal training? And it seemed almost impossible. Well, now going through this journey with Ideal and what we're currently doing, and realizing that I don't necessarily need to replace my income from Progressive, especially right now to start. I don't need to do that strictly through the personal training. There are so many other options out there in order to make money. We're working on some t-shirt businesses and some t-shirt ideas. So ultimately, I just need to make enough money to cover our expenses from this. Callie's still working; she has a job. So that changed my mindset and thought around the personal training. And also, I can tie in the ideal skills into my training program. When we talk about finding time for working out, you have to be intentional with, planning your week out. You have to be disciplined, obviously. You have to do it consistently when you don't want to necessarily in order to achieve the results that you want to achieve. You have to think from an emotional intelligence standpoint. What am I eating? Why am I eating it? Why don't I want to work out right now? How can I determine the cues when I do want to work out and when I don't want to work out, and when it's easy for me to push it and when it's not? So, and loyalty, obviously, that's a big one. You have a very big, when you start a fitness journey, that is a long journey. That is a long journey with a specific goal in mind, and you have to remain loyal to that goal. So when it comes to your loyalty to eating like junk, right, which is a habit, and kind of if you look at loyalty, that can be broken down into a habit as well, or loyalty of that long-term goal, what's it going to be? So there's going to be some really good reminders built into our program, and what I'm going for is really changing your habits in your life. So using physical fitness and nutrition as the foundation to apply the habit cue and learn the deep understanding of habits that you need in order to kind of rewrite the rest of your life when it comes to habits, and applying that to the physical fitness and the nutrition coaching. The other thing too is I'm specifically targeting busy adults. So many people, when I talk to them about fitness and nutrition, yeah, that sounds great, but I just don't have the time. Well, the great news is my workouts are usually very simple, very quick, and very effective. So it's much easier to find the time. I used to be somebody who spent an hour and a half, 2 hours in the gym some days, and I get it. Not everyone has the time to do that. Even right now, yes, my actual like lifts are super quick, efficient, and effective hit style workouts. But I also train jujitsu 3 times, or well, right now it's more like 1 or 2 times a week. But my goal is to be training 3 times a week. I run 3, 4, 5 days a week, and that is very, very time consuming. So I get that. And then if you combine that and you want to do some sort of mindset coaching, and specifically, again, what we're focused on is habit creation and applying the ideal skills to that. But if you want to do that, then okay, well, that's another thing that you're taking on. And I understand there are many people out there in the world right now that have multiple kids, that work multiple jobs, they're business owners, and they have a lot of priorities. And sometimes finding that time to dedicate to fitness and nutrition can be very, very hard to do. It's not impossible, but it can be hard to do. But if you take that and say, oh, I don't really need an hour in the gym. I just need 20 minutes to get a very quick, effective, high intensity workout in. And then it becomes a little bit more manageable. If we're doing that 3 times a week and you're watching your nutrition and you're getting out and staying active on those other days, walking, playing with your kids, whatever it may be, just getting that 30 to 60 minutes of intentional movement in per day, you would be amazed at the changes that you can make. And then with nutrition, it's not like nutrition, fitness. Typically, we think it's some complicated, complex thing that it's just super intimidating and overwhelming for a lot of people. Listen, unless you're trying to be a professional CrossFit athlete, a professional athlete of any sort, a bodybuilder, something along those lines, it does not have to be complicated. Quick, simple, effective workouts. Some of my workouts only have 3 different movements in them. And here's an example of a quick hit workout. So I like every minute on the minute workouts when I'm doing something super quick, 15 to 20 minutes. I like that every minute on the minute work, or framework. I don't know how to I'm losing my words right now with how to put that. But so for an example, so 15 minutes every minute on the minute. I would do 3 burpees, 3 bag swings and 5 body weight squats. And that, let's say that that takes me 25 seconds. That means I have a 35-second break before I do the next round. Now I just repeat that 15 times. You'll be amazed at the cardio workout that you get, how bad your legs are burning, how engaged your core is. It's about making those compound, effective movements and putting them into a very condensed period of time, making it extremely efficient, extremely effective, and very, very simple. You do something similar to that 3 times a week, you get moving the other days of the week, you have your active recovery days. Again, active recovery days would be something along the lines of walking, yoga, stretching, keeping your body moving. But you can do all of those things. You can walk with your family, you can stretch with your kids, you can do yoga while the kids are in the room. There are so many ways to work around this. You can use your kids, well, it sounds bad, but you can include your kids in your workout. So, a good friend of ours, Mandy, Kurzinger, she sent us a picture the other day. She was working out and she had their daughter Brooke on her shoulders doing squats. Like, you can make all the excuses you want, or you can make the time to get it in and you can finally see the results that you want. It really comes down to that. However, again, I go back to understanding that an hour and a half, 2 hours in the gym, 4 or 5 days a week is it's impossible for a lot of people. So I get it. You also have to understand that there are only 24 hours in the day. So for all of you out there that are like, oh, you're just making excuses, get up earlier, get up later, rest is important too. And with only 24 hours in the day, kids, again, multiple jobs, business, whatever it may be, it can be challenging to find that time. So I understand. But anyway, back to my original point before I started this rant, then you add on mindset or habit coaching, something like that. And that's just one more thing. I want to combine those two. I want to teach you how to create basically, well, I should take that back. You really don't create new habits, you replace old habits with new habits. So I want you to understand the habit loop, understand how to replace habits, and teach you how to do that through tangible, hands on physical fitness and nutrition coaching that you can then adopt that mindset across your entire life. So you want to instill habits that make you a better parent. You want to instill habits that make you a better father, a better business owner. You apply the same habit loop that we'll talk about through the fitness programming, and you can do that again in any area of your life. So its goal is to be super simple, effective, and efficient mindset and fitness coaching, and making sure that it's geared towards people who typically have a hard time finding the time to get those type of workouts in. But if that's not you and you have plenty of time and you just like quick, simple, and effective, that's great. I want to work with you too. So um, that is evolving right now. There's more to come with that, but I'm being super intentional with the approach here, making sure that my vision for what we're doing is very clear, making sure that I have incentive programs, got to figure out pricing, how it looks virtually, how it looks in person. So there's a lot to hammer out here. And I'm sure even though I'm being extremely intentional with this and how I'm approaching it, I'm sure it will change and adapt over time. So more to come on that, but really, really excited to get that going. I want to be back in the gym as much as I possibly can. I've noticed since working from home pretty much full time, and that started back in 2019. So I started working from home before COVID shut everything down. I've lost a lot of that sense of community. I have very close friends. I have a very close network in the mastermind and emerge, but it's different than actually being in a building face to face with your friends, with your clients. So I'm excited to get back to that. And I luckily train at one of the best facilities on the planet. I best in Cleveland, hands down, upgraded industries. I'm so lucky for the community that is that gym. And I mentioned it to DJ, the owner, and a good friend of mine the other day. I'm like, dude, you've built so much more than a gym here. Like, you've built a community. And that community is also key when it comes to changing habits. So when you sign up for my program, you're not going to be alone. You're going to be connected with a group of like-minded people that are there, that are going to hold you accountable, that want you to get after it. And I'm actually thinking about having an accountability partner, maybe somebody who's been like a sponsor. So think AA, right? And I know that's kind of a crazy comparison here, but what AA does is helps people relearn, or excuse me, replace alcoholism with positive habits, and they do that through becoming a part of a community. I want to do the same thing for people that want to get moving and really start a community and start a movement in the country to really get the country moving. We're doing that with the ruck marches as well. The ruck march ties into that perfectly, where it's like, hey, we've identified this issue in this country where we just, are distracted by technology. We are addicted to those quick dopamine hits. We want instant gratification. And that's not real life. That's not how real life, that's not how real results work. So by doing the personal training, having these ruck marches, we really want to start that movement, country moving, to battle or to fight against social media, to fight against video games, TV, all of these things that keep us sedentary and are really impacting our health as a nation. And we talked about it last week as well, but you combine this sedentary lifestyle and these advances in technology that we've had with the complete trash of processed foods that we pump out and put onto the shelves in our stores. We're moving in a dangerous direction. And if you, again, we've talked about this a little bit in the past, but just look back in time, go back to the 60s, the 50s, and look at the health of the nation from an obesity standpoint, a chronic illness standpoint, and look where we're at now. Not that far removed from those eras. And it's just crazy. Go to Walmart, look around at your local sporting events, at your local high school football game, and just look at the health of the people around you. And maybe that's the time to look at the health of for yourself as well and reflect on yourself and the habits that you have in your life. And I know it can seem impossible to take those negative habits that you've had for so long and replace them with positive habits. And you've probably tried before. You've probably done it. And anybody who's trying to do better for themselves, I have a high level of respect for. And it goes back to, I'm not judging any individuals. I'm judging us as a society, and that we become so complacent with our health, and we've put so much of our health in the hands of these big corporations that are pumping out processed food, and big pharma and mainstream media and the government. We just hand it over like somebody else is going to provide us with the results that we're looking for. That's not how it works. You have to put the work in. You can change your habits. It is completely possible. And it's possible because I've done it. I used to be 256 pounds. I'm down to 199. I was horribly unhealthy. I drank all the time. I lifted. I'm not going to sit here and say that I never worked out. I lifted, but my intent behind lifting was just to be as big and strong as I possibly could back then, which, yeah, I was big and strong, and I was overweight, and I was unhealthy because I was eating garbage. I was eating processed food. I was pumping my body full of alcohol and pizza and weight gainer shakes that are full of sugar and terrible things for you. And I didn't even realize it back then, but I was miserable. And I didn't know it until I really started cleaning up my act and losing weight. And that was when I went to basic training. I'm like, oh man, like my body feels so much better. My joints feel so much better. I'm not in nearly as much pain. Well, it was twofold. It was because I was pumping my body full of processed food, and that was one thing I really didn't have access to when I was in basic training. I mean, we had MREs from time to time, but for the most part, when you're eating at the chow hall, it's actually pretty healthy food. And when I was going through basic training, they had a red, green, or yellow label on each food choice to tell you, is this something you should eat a lot of, green, something you should eat a little bit of, red or yellow, and something you should probably avoid completely, red. And of course, young, stupid kids, a lot of them still ate the red garbage, but I made it a very intentional act when I was in basic training to lose a bunch of weight. By the time I left for basic training, I think I weighed 240. And by the time I got done, I think I was down to like 215, something like that. Went to AIT, got down to 207. And again, it just felt incredible. So when you're out shopping, again, look at the ingredient label. And if you buy peanuts, try to find something that says peanuts and salt. Don't, I grabbed a bottle the other day, a bottle of peanuts, jar of peanuts, can of peanuts, whatever you want to call it. And again, my bad. I didn't read the label. I was at Aldi's. I kind of assumed because Aldi, for the most part, has some pretty good choices. I got home. I read the label. It's got a bunch of additives to it. I'm gonna eat it because I paid for it, and food is expensive right now, and money is tight. So, but next time, that's just a good reminder that I need to be much more mindful of what I'm putting into my body. And then I get it, like food is expensive. We came back from Texas, we moved into our house, we have a mortgage payment again, we have bills. So I started a budget for our grocery for the first time ever. But before we left for Texas, I mean, there were months where just between two people, Callie and I, we were spending seven, eight, $900 on groceries because I was eating a ton of food at that time because I was trying to put on a bunch of muscle, and then we were also eating super healthy. And unfortunately, which blows my mind. So think about this: a whole food is more expensive than something that took a bunch of processing and a bunch of added ingredients. So make that make sense. So like if I just eat what nature provides, that's more expensive than eating this thing that went through all this processing and had all these additives to it. Like that just doesn't line up and make sense as to why the natural version would be more expensive than the processed version. It's like buying a car that's not, that has the bare minimums would be more expensive than a car with all of the options. Like that just, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me. But and I have a big conspiracy theory. Maybe we'll talk about that on the next show. But I have this like massive conspiracy theory, and I'm actually really interested in it because if you just talk out loud logically, it makes a lot of sense. But I'll save that one for next time. So again, super excited about that pivot. I think there's going to be some changes as far as how we're approaching the podcast, maybe potentially eventually doing two podcasts, one focused on health, nutrition, positive habits, positive mindset, and then one that's more Rogan-esque, where we're having deep conversations, interesting conversations with interesting people, interesting topics. So excited to see what the future brings here, but really, really looking forward to it. And then the March for Heroes event, it's picking up some steam. We've sold 5 tickets. I think we were up to 3 or 4 sponsors now, which is really, really four. Yeah, I think we're at 4 right now, which is exciting. And we have a long ways to go. So registration's open until October 21st. And I think as we get closer to the registration date, hopefully more people are going to get interested, more people are going to get signed up. And again, we have an 11-mile option now, not just the 22. So if you weren't sure about the 22, come out, do 11, do 15, do 16, do 17, do 8, whatever you can get done just because you register for an 11-mile event. If you can't finish it, at least you tried, but go out there and give it your all. If you only get 5.5 miles, you only get 5.5 miles, but you're still out there, you're still moving, you're still becoming part of the community, and you're still giving back to the community here of veterans in Northeast Ohio, which is an amazing cause with the Northeast Ohio Foundation for Patriotism. So got to give that plug. And into what happened to me this week, that was a massive wake up call. And I took something scary and made it a big positive. And actually, even when it was happening, I was thinking, I'm like, man, this needed to happen clearly, and you need to take this as a sign. So I had my first full blown anxiety attack of my life, and I'll be honest with you. I've never been with someone physically in person with someone when they've had an anxiety attack. I've kind of always heard it and was like, oh, like really, like it can't be that bad, like or are these people serious, like, or is it just something that they're making up because they're I don't even know how to put it, but I just had this really like, yeah, whatever mindset towards anxiety attacks. I didn't think they were necessarily fake. Sure, I'm sure some people out there do shit and fake stuff like that in order to get attention, but I do believe that for the most part, people are legitimate when they're talking about their health issues. So, but yeah, anyway, so it happened to me for the first time, and I will tell you, it was one of the scariest moments of my life. So Callie had something crazy happen a few years ago. She had an ectopic pregnancy. Her fallopian tube ruptured. She almost died. 2 liters of blood in her stomach, in her abdomen, super low blood pressure by the time they got her on the squad. It was really scary. I would say that was probably the scariest day of my life. This was up there. This was probably the second scariest day of my life, and it so I'll talk about what triggered it and then kind of what happened and what I've learned from it and my takeaways from it. But the big thing, or what triggered it. So my mom calls. So this is Tuesday evening. I had just a really negative day. So we signed the closing for the house. Leading up to that, I got screwed on basically the lender for the seller screwed us. They didn't lock in the rates for the seller. At the end, I ended up getting screwed out of $2,500, but it was either I get screwed out of 2,500 or we don't close on the sale. I walk away. I got to relist the house. I got to pay potentially 2 more mortgage payments that are completely just out of my pocket. It was it was a stressful situation. That didn't go well. My power washer broke. I ended up having to throw that away. It was just one of those days where there was a lot of small stuff that just stacked up, and it started to feel overwhelming. And so Wednesday morning, my mom was scheduled to have a heart procedure, and I had completely lost track of the days. I completely forgot that it was Tuesday night. My mom calls to talk to Callie and gives me the phone. I'm talking to my mom, and I just got this overwhelming sense of guilt that I had forgotten to call my mom the night before her heart procedure. And it wasn't until noon or 12:30 the next day, so there would have been plenty of time to talk in the morning, but it was just, I don't know, it was just this trigger. And I got off the phone with my mom and I just like broke down. I started crying uncontrollably, laying in the bed with Sophie. She was curled up next to me, doing a great job of giving me some comfort in that moment. Then I started thinking, Sophie's 8 years old. She's my best buddy. She's not going to be here forever. That got me even more sad. I stood up and almost passed out, went out into the living room. I thought I had kind of like regained control of the situation. I was having a hard time breathing. Chest felt real tight, but again, I had controlled the crying. I thought everything was fine. And go out to the living room, and Callie's, asking me what's going on. And all of a sudden, as I'm telling her this story about all of this guilt that I felt, and then the dog, all of this other guilt hit me, just like guilt from everything I have ever done wrong in my entire life. It was like reliving all the negative moments, and it just came crashing down upon me like a ton of bricks. My chest like tightened up even more. I was shaking uncontrollably. I felt like I was going to pass out. My thoughts got extremely dark, and it got to the point where I was very concerned that I didn't know what was happening, by the way, at this point. Like, I still don't know why this is happening. I don't know if I'm having a heart attack. I don't know what's going on, which makes it even more scary, right? So I tell Callie, I'm like, hey, you might have to take me to the hospital. I don't know what's going on, but I legit feel like I'm gonna die. Like, I don't know if I am, but that's the feel that that's the way that I'm feeling right now. And it got to the point too where I was like almost like, I think you might have to put the firearms away, because I just like, there's just this overwhelming sense of guilt, and I don't know if I can like live through this. It was absolutely wild. So I looked up, I grabbed my phone, I looked up signs of an anxiety attack. I'm like, oh, like shit, this is exactly what I'm experiencing. And at that point in time, it was easier for me to kind of like calm myself down, because I realized, hey, I'm like, you're gonna be okay. I could start rationalizing things. And at that point in time, also, I'm thinking, damn, like, what are you doing wrong that has caused you to have this experience for the first time ever in your life? That it's a sign that something's not right, something's not aligned. You need to make some changes. And I realized a lot in that moment that I haven't been giving myself enough grace when it comes to taking breaks. When I do take breaks, I'll schedule them and I actually don't adhere to them. I don't have enough boundaries in my life. I say yes to too many people and too many things. I'm constantly I'm constantly putting things on my plate as distractions. So if I'm facing something that really needs to be done and is going to be challenging and complicated, I'll grab something that's a lot easier to do. Ooh, I forgot. Well, that wall needs to be painted because we're redoing the house, and eventually all the flags and everything. I'm going to make this look a lot nicer if you're looking behind me. But there's a lot to do. There's the house, there's jujitsu, there's running, there's my workouts, there is reading, there's meditation, there's gratitude, there's all of these things that I do in the day to day. Then that doesn't even include the hard stuff, the business, planning for the ruck march. There's so much going on, the podcast, so much going on, and that's all my fault. That is all 100% on me. I have no one else to blame but myself for saying yes to too many things, for not being intentional, not being disciplined, not being emotionally intelligent, not taking ownership, not being loyal to myself and to Callie and my family, not spending enough time with them, and spending time on things that are honestly just not that important, or at least making those things a priority over the things that I do think are really important in life: making memories, making experiences, resting, relaxing, rejuvenating, spending time with my friends and family. And again, but being intentional with that time because I'm again going back to I'm just saying yes to way too much. So with the way that I'm approaching business, I mean, that was another huge wake up call, all in that. But so again, in that moment, I'm immediately grateful for what's happening, what seems like a terrifying situation. I literally feel like I'm dying, and I'm grateful for it. And I think that comes from the fact that I practice daily gratitude. Every single morning, I find 10 things that I'm grateful for. And some days those things or some of those things are the same every day. My dogs, my wife, my parents, my friends, I'll list specific friends from time to time that I'm super grateful for that maybe I just had a really good conversation with. You know, some days it's just having a roof over my head. Some days it's waking up. Some days it's the mistakes that I've made. Some days it is the cars that I have. It can be anything, but there's so much in life to be grateful for. And the fact that I practice that every single day made that habit kick in right in the middle of an anxiety attack. My chest is tight. It feels like I got, the biggest guys in the gym laying on my chest in side control. For anybody who does jujitsu out there, you can imagine what that feels like. You got that stocky brown belt just absolutely crushing you in side control. It was like that, but 10 times worse. I'm finding the positive in that moment. So that is a huge testament to practicing daily gratitude and building that habit. And again, I can teach people how to do that through physical fitness because they allow you to react automatically to those situations. They make muscle and mind, that memory where you just instinctually apply those things in those situations. So I'm again, it was a terrifying, scary situation, but I'm so grateful. I'm making a lot of changes. I've realized, hey, I really got to get on top of planning my solo trip. I need to stop making excuses for not taking care of myself from a rest and rejuvenation standpoint and being as intentional with my recovery as I am with the actual fitness and movement portion. I stretch, but I don't do enough regularly for myself. Moving forward for the time being until I start doing the personal training, I'm taking every Friday, and that is going to be for me. Some Fridays that might mean going to a coffee shop, working a little bit on stuff that I really want to work out on that excites me, not working on anything that I just have to get done. It could be going to the beach, it could be going fishing, it could be going to hang out with one of my buddies. But Fridays are going to be for me, and I really, really need to set that boundary and stick to it. So if there are phone calls on Friday, I need to start saying no. Hey, I need to reschedule. I need to start blocking Fridays off so that I can't take phone calls or people can't schedule time with me. And then eventually, I think I'm going to have to adjust how I approach that when it comes to the personal training because I'm sure there are going to be people that want to get in the gym and get after it on Fridays. So maybe that's Saturdays. And I'm going to be very specific. I'm not going to be working on Sundays. I'm going to try to not work on Saturdays, maybe a few hours in the morning. I'm going to only offer my services from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. I'm going to make more time to get to jujitsu. That's super important for me from a mental health standpoint. I'm going to make sure that I'm scheduling my long runs, which is also important to me from a mental health standpoint. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to have at least one weekday a month where I block that off, where I don't do any training, where I go and take that day to myself, whether it's getting a massage, whether it's going to the beach and meditating, whatever it may be. I need to have that boundary. And the other thing is, I need to be living my vision more. I need to establish my vision for where I want to go. And I've done that and really lean into living that, not allowing other people to dictate the vision of my life. That's super important for me as well. So, a lot of lessons learned. So, anybody out there who's struggling with anxiety attacks, and hey, I'm sure there are people that have had it worse than me. I'm sure there are people that have them frequently, but remember there's good in there too. There are signs in there that something in your life needs to change. You need to do something different, and probably that's going to start with replacing some of those negative habits with positive habits, or just starting those positive habits may help you handle or change your mindset when it comes to those anxiety attacks. And I would be willing to guess, I'm not a doctor, I don't know this for sure, I've only experienced one, but now that I've identified this, I would hope that this either doesn't happen again or happens super infrequently. But I'm confident that with the changes I've made, I really don't want to put myself in the position where that happens again if I can control it at all. And of course, I had some people in my life saying, "Hey, you should go to the doctor. You should get on prescriptions." Blah blah blah. No, I do not. That is an absolute last resort. I do not want to put pharmaceuticals in my body if at all possible. Don't get me wrong, there is a time and place for that stuff, but I really want to try preventative whole medicine before I go that route. But again, I did make a promise to myself where if this continues to happen, where if I can't control it on my own, I will go get help. But I think I have a good plan in place. And the other thing too is really, I think the more that I can, I don't know if this has anything to do with it. This is not science or anything like that, but it's just my belief that the better I take care of my body, the better my mind and my emotions and everything like that are going to react as well. So that was the last thing that I wanted to share with everybody. We got some exciting interviews coming up. So, I mentioned that we were kind of going to move away from the interview format, which we were. And then, as I mentioned before, I kind of want two podcasts eventually, one for the personal development, the health, the fitness, and then one where we can just have really open, interesting conversations. But I connected with a friend, Steve Underwood, a couple weeks ago, and him and his wife have traditional marriage. And he was like, a lot of times he gets looked at crazy because of their traditional marriage and gender roles within their household. And I thought that would make a really interesting conversation in today's society. And then also, we have a special guest, Willow Johnson, who's coming on, who's going to share their story with us. And I think that one is going to be a very, very interesting, open, genuine, curious, informative conversation. So be on the lookout for that. I'm not going to share a ton of details with anybody yet, but that one's going to be one that I think both of those, Steve and Willow, you're not going to want to miss one of those. And I believe Steve is bringing his wife on the show as well, so be a really, really good open conversation. But hey, it's Labor Day weekend. I hope everybody out there takes some time, spend it with your family, take the day, at least one of the days this weekend, to rest, recover, rejuvenate, get some movement in, get some workouts in, enjoy yourself on the holiday. I often, in the past, I would get super restrictive with what I was eating and I would be super grumpy when it came to the holidays. Hey, it's a holiday. I still am going to have my cheat day this week. So Monday, brisket, we're doing dessert. I got some Buckeyes from when I picked up my quarter of beef the other day. So it's going to be a fun weekend. Don't overdo it, anybody. Make sure you don't do anything crazy, but have fun, enjoy yourselves, and we will talk to you soon.
Hey everybody, if you liked what you heard today, please check us out on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And don't forget to head to Eventbrite and grab one of the 10 tickets available for our monthly Ideal Connect call. Then when you're ready to take the next step, message us on any of our social media pages to book a free coaching consultation call to see how we can help you start living your own ideal life. Thanks again for all of your love and support, and always remember, you have everything you need to achieve success. It's just a matter of believing.